Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Relationship School Podcast. I'm your host, Jayson Gaddis, and I'm psyched to be here. Thank you for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for sharing with a friend. Over the years, I just appreciate those of you who have listened. You've come in and out, maybe. You listen to the episodes you want to, and you share this. You subscribe, and even more gratitude for those that have left reviews. That helps us in the algorithm, apparently. So if you haven't left a review, I would love to hear from you on Apple Podcasts. All right. Thanks. Yes. This podcast is all about helping you with your relational life. It could be family, friends, coworkers, self, kids, parents. Yeah, the people in the world. And as you know, I'm on a mission to change culture, evolve culture through more relationally sensitive people who are relationally developed, people who care about collaboration instead of war, for example. Yeah. There's a lot going on in the world, and it's intense, and sometimes I feel powerless to change it, and sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. I don't know if you ever feel that way. And then, I remember what I'm creating in my family, and then what I'm creating here at the Relationship School, and how I'm just trying to help people. And thanks for being one of those people too. I know you care about connection. You care about treating people well. So thanks for that. In this episode, I am going to cover, I'm basically going to unpack an Instagram reel I did that sort of got a lot of traction. And I think that's interesting. So I thought I would just unpack it, because reels, as you know, on Instagram are like 10 seconds to 1 minute long. And I'm really recording a lot of those lately for you, because people tend to like, our attention spans are so fucking short that we can do, if I just give you little bits of information, maybe that's helpful. Of course, if you want to go a little deeper, you come here to the podcast. If you want to go a little deeper, you sign up for one of our courses, for example, and you really get in there. The people that I see change the most are people who prioritize relationship work, meaning they develop themselves relationally, and they do, for example, our 9-month course, Relationship Mastery. Those people change their lives, and it's pretty powerful to watch. And it's like a permanent upgrade. So thanks to all you Relationship Mastery grads and students for doing the work. And all the rest of y'all for, just looking inward, being self-reflective, okay? This reel, I'm just going to play it, and then we're going to unpack it, okay? So let's play what I shared. And I think the title was, Stop Trying to Make Relationships Work with These Types of People. Because I get so many questions about how to make relationships work with these types of people. I just said, hey, stop trying to make these kind of relationships work with these types of people. So let's hear what I had to say. Stop trying to make relationships work with these type of people. Gaslighters, narcissists, Stonewallers, defensive assholes, and people who are unwilling to take any personal responsibility. That is a losing relationship. Skip those kind of relationships forever. Boom. Skip those kind of relationships forever. Now that's a pretty bold statement, right? Skip those kind of relationships forever. What am I really getting at there? I'm saying that these types of people, narcissists, gaslighters, Stonewallers, defensive assholes, and people who will never take personal responsibility, you literally can't make that kind of relationship work. Now, there is one disclaimer here, okay? There are two, I'm going to unpack each one of these, all right? There are two types of narcissism, okay? Overt and covert, or vulnerable, I think is one term, closeted. Anyway, what's easy to remember is overt is outward, covert is more kind of sneaky and less and more hidden, okay? Overt narcissism, I unpacked this with Stan Tack, and he actually unpacks this because he's studied with Masterson, who is a personality disorder specialist. Back in the day, Masterson was amazing. If you want really technical reads on narcissism, go study Masterson. My wife recently read one of those, and I was like, I attempted to, but it was kind of dense for me. But I might go back because to me it's so fascinating. And personality disorders are essentially injuries of the self, usually in the first 2 years of life, when the emerging self is developing. So it's very easy to call, like everybody throws around the term narcissism these days, and unfortunately most people don't know what they're talking about. Narcissism is complex, and if you think about a child growing up, particularly covert narcissism and how it develops, it's quite sad, actually, in terms of the neglect and the confusion of the child and what the child does to adapt. So go listen to the 2 Types of Narcissism podcast by Stan Tatkin. Just Google Jayson Gaddis, Stan Tatkin, 2 Types of Narcissism. It'll pop right up, and you can find a link on your phone to listen to that one, okay? That's a deeper dive, all right? Overt narcissism is more like, we could say Putin or Donald Trump, those people actually get labeled narcissists a lot, and they're more characterological in nature because they don't give a shit about other people. That's kind of how you could see that. It's all about grandiose, like, I'm the most important person in the room and in the world, and no one can fuck with me, and I don't care about anybody's feelings or any relationships at all, unless it's for my gain. That's more of an overt narcissist. Covert is a little more complicated. That child grew up in a, kind of a challenging situation where they got really confused and they defended against themselves so that they wouldn't get abandoned. Bottom line here is covert narcissism, actually people who have covert narcissism do go to therapy. Usually they go to therapy because they get dragged there by their partner, but once in a while they go there on their own to try to get help, but it's complicated. And it's a relational injury, so it has to happen in long-term relational work. And that's why couples work can be effective with covert narcissism. But it's still very difficult to work with, right? Overt narcissism, I don't think you can work with that personally, in my experience. Those people don't come to therapy or coaching ever because they don't give a shit. They don't want to work on it. There's nothing to work on. I'm the greatest thing. Like, Okay, so that's, narcissists are in general, when you use that label, when I'm using that label, let's slow it down and actually do the work, do your homework and look in the DSM, Diagnostic Statistical Manual, if you want to get really technical, read what the features are of these characterological disorders. They used to call them Axis 2. Now they're calling them sort of characterological disorders, I think. Anyway, for you nerds out there, you can get into that, all right? Next, gaslighters. Now, the way I like to think about gaslighting, all right, let's just look up the term and see what Google says. Gaslighting. As I type that in, let's see, we get a definition on Wikipedia that says, gaslighting is a colloquialism, loosely defined as making someone question their own reality. Usually this is people who deny reality, really, and they say, I didn't do that, that never happened, I didn't say that, and they twist it and contort the relational dynamic so that they have no responsibility and you have all the responsibility. And they literally say, it's kind of like, picture a person holding a blowtorch, like a massive giant army kind of blowtorch, like a flamethrower, and they're throwing flames in every direction, kind of burning down any possibilities that they have any responsibility. It's like, it's not me. So they're a person who presents a false narrative to another group or person, which leads them to doubt their perceptions of the other person. That's you if you're in a relationship with a gaslighter. Doubt your perceptions and become misled, generally for the gaslighter's own benefit, and you become disoriented or distressed. Generally, this dynamic is possible only when the audience is vulnerable, such as in unequal power dynamics in relationships or when the audience is fearful of the losses associated with challenging a false narrative. Gaslighting is not necessarily malicious or intentional, although in some cases it is. Yeah, it comes from a film apparently developed in the 40s called Gaslight, in which a husband uses trickery to convince his wife that she is mentally unwell so he can steal from her. Exactly, that kind of thing. Yeah. It's a pretty new term, 2010s-ish. When you go up to your partner and you say, when you raised your voice, I felt really scared and hurt. The gaslighter says, I didn't raise my voice and you're fine. It's like, what? It's that kind of behavior. It's obviously a lot worse than this, but these are some examples. Hey, it's that time of year again to feel accepted and connected. Like, who doesn't want to feel accepted and connected in their relationships? particularly an intimate relationship, right? But I think you've learned by now it's going to take some work. You've got to actually behave in certain ways that are caring and respectful, and you got to listen better and all that stuff in order to get that. So I created a 2-day event that I've done for many years now, and it's awesome. We've had hundreds of people go through this experience, maybe over 1,000 now, and I want you to come, okay? But first, check out what one of our participants, Jonah, had to say about it.
I started listening to Jason's podcast a few years ago because I just felt stuck in some of my relationships, and just recently realized that I keep bumping up against some of the same patterns and blockages in the ways that I cope with conflict in relationship. Despite all of my attempts to break those patterns, I keep repeating them and really not allowing myself to stay in the conflict and to experience the emotions that go along with it and work through those emotions instead of ejecting. And heard about this workshop and thought it'd be a great opportunity to identify specifically those patterns and find ways to work through them and rewire them for myself. I would absolutely recommend the Accepted and Connected course just as a primer for looking at how we experience relationships and how we experience conflict. The biggest thing that I'm going to walk away with is the experience of having the opportunity to hold myself accountable for the role that I play.
Okay, Jonah, that was pretty inspiring, right? Jonah went on to do our relationship mastery course and is just an awesome human being. And the dude just up-leveled big time. And this event kicked it off for him. So I'd love you to come as well. Go to relationshipschool.com/connected to get the latest dealio. And we'll see you in there, all right? Okay, stonewalling, as the Gottmans call it, is, I like to just think of stonewall, putting a stonewall in front of the conversation. Stonewallers tend to avoid and move away from difficult conversations like conflict. They tend to basically shut down to the point of like, I'm not available for that conversation. And they really put a wrench in any ability to work through a conflict, for example, okay? So let's look up stonewalling here. It involves avoiding conversations or refusing to talk to someone. For some people, it may be a coping mechanism to minimize or avoid conflict. Okay, this is classic, right? Others may use this tactic intentionally to manipulate or control their partner, right? Stonewalling is gnarly. It's one of the Gottmans' 4 horsemen. I'm mentioning 2 of them here today. Actually, 3 of them here today. So I love the Gottmans and their work. So just think of the stonewall. It's like your partner puts up a stonewall and won't come to the table and work something out. It's just an easy way to visualize what this feels like and looks like. When someone won't come back around over the wall or dismantle the wall and say, okay, I'm open to a conversation here, they're stonewalling, all right? A lot of family members do this in families. Like, nope, we don't go there. We don't talk about what happened. That's a stonewall. These are painful, as you can imagine. Just as we kind of touch into them, it's like, oof, it's brutal to be in relationships with these people. Number 4, defensive assholes. Another one of the Gottmans' 4 horsemen is defensiveness. Defensive assholes, what do I mean by that? I just mean I constantly say, I didn't do that. No, that's not what I meant. No. And then they justify and make excuses for their behavior. Defend. I've done a lot of podcasts here on defensiveness. We all get defensive, so no one is above defensiveness, all right? Defensiveness is probably the most normal of all of these kind of relational issues and traits that I'm talking about today. And it's painful to be on the receiving end of someone who defends themselves. So this looks like when I come to you and you and I are in a relationship and I say, hey, yesterday when you didn't text me back, that really hurt my feelings. And they start coming in with like, I did too text you back. I texted you back last night. What are you talking about? And they defend and say, I did too, is a classic one, right? No, I didn't do that. Like, hey, remember last week when such and such happened? They sort of deny reality a little bit, or they say they have a completely different picture and they say, I didn't do that. I did this other thing. No, it was you who did that. Okay, that's a defensive asshole, right? Now, remember, we can all be defensive assholes at times, some of the time. A defensive asshole, though, that I'm talking about is this way the vast majority of the time in a relationship. It's like totally unworkable. They never do the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is to take personal responsibility, okay? So the last person you want to avoid in a relationship is someone who does not take personal responsibility. And typically, This fifth type of person often gets labeled as any one of the first four: a narcissist, a gaslighter, a stonewaller, or a defensive asshole. There's someone who's like, I don't have a part. You're the emotional one. You're the sensitive one. You're the one that created this whole thing. You're the one that's just bringing up all the drama. Why do you have to bring up the past? And I didn't do anything. This is all you. And this is again a version of gaslighting. A more subtle version is just you're in a relationship with someone and it's actually okay for a while. And then they just, when you get into conflict, they avoid and they don't want to talk about it. And they just like kind of keep avoiding, and they're just like, can we just change the channel? Can we just like be back in our honeymoon stage again? Can we just like be in a happy place? Like, why do we have to talk about this again? That's kind of the low grade chronic version of this that you get. And there's a lot of people who stay in relationships with people like this because it's not abusive. It's not necessarily mean-spirited. It's almost like unintentional. This person just doesn't seem to have the capacity to self-reflect and to say, I have a part. They don't even realize in some cases they have a part. Sometimes they do, and that's more of the manipulation stuff up above that I talked about. But sometimes people genuinely are just like, I don't think I had anything to do with this fight that we're in. I really don't think, no, I'm like, we're fine. This person won't, you got to think, when you think about it, if I don't take personal responsibility for my part in a relationship, our relationship is completely already hit a ceiling because we can't go beyond your inability to take personal responsibility. We can't go past that developmentally in our relationship. It's impossible because I'm not responsible for anything here, any outcome, for this to be better, for this to be worse. I have no part. That's really, like, if you're in a relationship with someone like this, it's it's like you're helpless, powerless. So why am I reminding people to not be in relationships with gaslighters, narcissists, stonewallers, defensive assholes, and people who don't take personal responsibility? Because relationships only work with two willing people who can and will take personal responsibility and do the work. Meaning, it doesn't mean you have to be like me and you're a relationship nerd and you're always working on it and you never stop thinking about it. That's my life. That's because it's a very high value of mine. It's because I have a lot of injuries there from my history. It's my mission in life. We're not expecting you to be like me here. But to get anywhere good in a relationship, you have to have two willing people who are good to each other, who are respectful to each other, who are kind to each other, who it's mutual. The metaphor I often use is when if we're rowing a boat, we both have paddles. If there's a leak in the boat, we take turns, we fix it, we get back in the boat and we're like, okay, what's next? Let's go out and face the challenges in our life. That is what I call a secure boat, a secure home base. And I wrote an entire book on this subject, right? How do we get back to a good place? Zero, I call it. How do we get there? Well, we have to learn a little bit about each other and about ourselves. So if you want secure relationships, guys, it's not going to happen with these 5 types of people, ever. Okay, I'm just the bearer of bad news here. It ain't going to happen. And if you're stuck trying to change your partner because they're one of these 5 types, you're wasting your time, right? And the disclaimer here is that there's a small glimmer of hope for the covert narcissist at times, in my experience, and from what I have read and understand of people, that can happen once in a while. Number 5, really any of these can get shattered if a person finally wakes up one day and says, I have a part. I am willing to take responsibility and I'm willing to work on it. Sure, any one of these could work, right? But you are hoping and praying for that day that may never come, that will likely never come if you're in a relationship with these type of people. So you have work to do. And you may know someone who's with someone like this, right? And they have work to do with it. So rather than trying to focus on the other person changing, as I always say, guys, work on yourself. Work on your codependent dynamics. Work on what it is that has you undervalue yourself and stay with people who treat you like shit. Like, that's all opportunities for you to look in the mirror and go, why am I still here? Holy shit. Now, I understand some people are in very dependent relationships. You're financially dependent. You have children. You don't have any training in any job. And so if you try to extract yourself from this relationship, your life could spiral down, right? But that's fine. So I'm just saying, okay, if you want to stay, you must choose it and not be a victim to it. Like I have to, like I can't leave. It's I choose to stay. Because if you use I choose language, then you're not a victim to it. You are in it by choice as an adult, and you're choosing it. And then you can kind of keep every day go, wow, I keep choosing this, and it's painful and it hurts, but I'm choosing it. And you could even get to peace with yourself and say, well, I choose it because it's better than being alone. Okay, that's fine. But I'm here to assert, as I say off and over and over in this podcast, you can have the kind of relationship you want, in my opinion, and through my belief system and all my experience. It's a matter of working for it and going after it and making it the highest priority in your life. Okay. All right. A reminder, if you want to come train with us and test the waters of starting to turn inward here and really go after the relationships you want, it's going to require some personal work, I think. Most people don't magically get a new relationship that's much better and it stays that way for life. They usually have to put some effort in. So we have a workshop we've been doing for years called Accepted and Connected. It's based loosely around my new book. It's really a weekend around conflict. How do we get to a better place? How do we build security in a relationship? How do we deal with our attachment styles? Because that's a security fight. How do we do this better? And it's 2 days of practicing and being together in a really strong way. So you can go to relationshipschool.com/connected if you want to sign up. Thanks, everybody. Let's raise the vibe out there by continuing to be the bigger person relationally that lends a hand to our fellow humans, and we'll own our part, we'll look in the mirror, and we'll learn about ourselves. Yeah, thanks for being that kind of person. As you know, I've dedicated my life to helping people with their relationships, right? I want to solve this problem so that all of you can work through your differences and have fulfilling, amazing, badass partnerships and relationships, family, coworkers, friends, whoever. And I have trained a ton of relationship coaches, almost 100 certified relationship coaches, to help you specifically work through your relationship challenges. So I want to invite you to a special deal we're offering to the podcast listener where you can get 50% off your first month of coaching with one of our amazing relationship coaches. Okay, if you're tired of therapy, it feels like that's going around in a circle, or you want to actually set goals and accomplish your relationship goals, hire a relationship coach. Okay, go to relationshipschool.com/get-coaching-now, and then use the coupon code FIRST50 to get the 50% deal off your first month of relationship coaching. Super psyched to have our amazing coaches serve you and help you get to the next level. If you live in the United States and you want to receive text messages from me about my personal life or little daily reminders, you can do that now. It's so cool. And you just need to text the number 720-704-4852, or you can go to my.community.com/Jayson Gaddis. And that way you can sign up for text. And if you just text me podcast, I know you came from the podcast, and I will be sending you text messages. You can always stop at any time just by typing in STOP. All right? Yeah, I look forward to connecting with you on your phone, folks. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Share one of these videos with a friend. We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships, and you are one of them, so thank you.